Welcome all of you to the Conscious Living series. As I said, this is my first live solo stream, and it's something that I've been meaning to do, has been on my bucket list for a very long time. Toxi GA, thank you so much for joining. And I've really wanted to do something on conscious living. So why am I here? Just to set context, tell you a little bit about myself, and what got me here. For those who know me, they know that I've had many professions, many hats. I wear many hats over the course of the years. I started off as an accountant, so spent about 10 years in accounting, and then went off to start, many people don't know this, but I actually left practice to start a social stationery company. That's like a printing company. I used to print wedding invitations, social stationery, and it was in the process of doing wedding invitations and social stationery that led to me starting event management. Again, many people did not know that, I ran an event management company called Stencil Events many years ago. And in the process of Stencil Events, I got introduced to team building as one of the "We are here for you." Jack Baba, thank you very much. So from there, that's when I was introduced to team building as one of the fastest growing subsectors of the special event industry. And I started, just serial entrepreneurs like in my blood, I started researching team building, team development, and I started Team Building Africa. We were representing Team Building USA in the African sub-region. And, at that time I had like 2-3 companies running side by side, and, along the way with team building, we started doing training. And the core issue that happened with team building was that, as an accountant, you have inputs in, inputs out. When you make changes in accounting, you know exactly what you're going to get back in return. But when we started dealing with human beings, you have these amazing team building sessions, very emotional. Everybody's making promises to each other, and then you get back to them 6 weeks later and you realize that they have gone back to status quo. So I started looking into what drives behavioral change, what drives sustainable behavioral change. So that's when I went into coaching. And also at that time, there were a lot of life was lifing. As we all know, life is a journey. Life was lifing. And at that point in time, I also had a situation where I just couldn't understand the people that were around me. Some friends, family members, and I really needed to go deep and understand why people do what they do. Why is it that I'm saying one thing, they're thinking of another, and they're communicating something else? And from there, I went into learning about personality, behavioral analysis, and I went ahead to do my master's in organizational psychology just to try to understand human behavior. From there, I went on to coaching, which coaching for me was in order for us to help our clients get to a level of performance and change your behavior that was sustainable. Right. So from there, we started ICF, International Coach Federation in Nigeria, alongside some of the amazing coaches, some of the, best coaches in Nigeria to start that off. And it was from training, coaching, that somehow, I went back to paid employment to take on a challenge of working within organized private sector. Now, what made me go back? I think that's the question that many people ask. After, owning my own time, owning my business, I think while we're working on ICF, the key tenets of ICF at that particular point in time, I think their tagline was "in service of humanity flourishing." And the more I knew and learned about coaching, the more I realized that there's so much more to every single human being than meets the eye. And there's so much more to us achieving our potential, our inherent God-given potential, than we are doing right now. in service of humanity flourishing. That was ICF's motto at that point in time. And I thought to myself, how more so this continent, Africa is such a talented continent. We are our people are full of talent. We are resilient. We are resourced. And I started wondering that, why and how is it that we are where we are? What exactly is going on? And it was at that point that I caught the bug to make impact and make changes within our own immediate environment. And what's our immediate environment? Look at Nigeria. Nigeria is such a blessed country. And, we have resources, we have technology, we have money. The only thing, for me, I thought the missing link for us at that point in time in Nigeria is people. And going to CIPM, which is the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, for those who don't know, for me was a way that I can influence policy at the highest level. It was all towards service of people, policy changes in the country. And it was at CIPM that I was introduced to the public sector, introduced to the governor, and the rest is history. I went to public sector, and then I'm back again from public sector, back to my consultancy. But one thing that I've done all throughout, and I think all throughout my life, is to move with my passions. People say jack of all trades, master of none. But I believe that your passion and what is burning inside you, the desire for you to do at any point in time, is a way that God tells you which line you should be in. I don't believe necessarily that people have to be in the same profession from beginning to end, but I just believe that one thing will lead to the other, that will direct you to where you are supposed to be. And I think it was Steve Jobs that sort of rounded it up properly or very well, that said, you will see, at the end of the day, you will see the dots connect. He didn't know when he started his calligraphy course in university that the knowledge of calligraphy was what he would use in the design and the aesthetics of the Apple computer. But he went with the flow, and at the end of the day, you look back and everything connects. And really, for me, where I sit right now, I look at all those my different professions and jobs, and I really truly believe that at the end of the day, everything connects. Every single profession, every single area that I've worked in sort of built on to help me to do the next thing. If I hadn't done HR on top of my financing, I would not have coped very well in Lagos State doing pensions, managing the budget, personnel budget, and also managing HR and IR. So I just believe that, and I think I'll talk about that in later on when we're talking about conscious living and what consciousness is all about. So that is a little bit about me. Thank you for everybody that has joined. SA, I see you. Everybody else that has joined. Everybody, I see you. Terra Africa, I see you. Okay, so that's a little bit about me, and that's really what led me to this day. Again, I don't know if many people know that we started a coach training program, and a lot of the concepts that I will be sharing with you in this series, many of it comes from the coach training program. And I got to the point this year for me has been a year of tremendous reflection. From January throughout Lent, it was a year that I really had to dig deep to figure out next steps, to figure out just purpose and to validate the purpose and where I think I should be walking in. And I got to a point somewhere a couple of months ago that I got the conviction, a very strong conviction in my spirit, that anything that I do that is for the purpose of humanity flourishing or for the betterment of humanity or to help other people be better than what they are or to become unstuck or to move forward from where they are, I should not charge for it. So I thought, okay, I will go through this and share some of the concepts that we teach in the coach training program and share that with all of you. These are concepts that as coaches we have lived and we continue to live, because it's not, we're all work in progress. We continue to live, and hopefully while living out the principles, we hope that, we'll see the world clearly, we have clarity in the thoughts and decisions that we have to make, and we can interact with the world we live in much better, and the community much better. All right, so I'm going to go into what consciousness is all about. And I think there was a time on LinkedIn that I shared a post on conscious leadership, and I had so many questions around, is consciousness delegation? What exactly is consciousness all about? So I knew that there was an interest in consciousness, and trying to explain consciousness. The truth is that there is no single, aligned, cohesive, coherent definition to consciousness. Depending on which discipline that you look at it from, or the lenses through which you look at it, they will give you different definitions and narratives. So if you are a medical practitioner, for instance, consciousness to them is, how responsive and aware are you about your own personal self, and also responsive to what is around you. So when somebody is unconscious in the medical discipline, it means that they're not responding to their own self-stimulus, and they're not responding to the world around them. So somebody can be unconscious and they can't eat, but they are still alive, but they're just not responsive to the stimulus around them. If you look at psychology looks at consciousness from, the way the brain works, that you have your consciousness is those thoughts that you are aware of, and, responses to your environment as a result of the thoughts and stimulus that come into you. Psychologists go into your pre-conscious, unconscious, your unconscious or subconscious, sometimes called subconscious. That's the area of your brain or your being that hosts thoughts, experiences, beliefs, emotions that you don't have access to, but is there. You're not conscious about it, it's in your subconscious, is there, but sometimes you can call it out, sometimes you can't call it out. The truth is that human beings, our brain forgets nothing. From the minute you are born, your brain is absorbing information, is absorbing experiences, stimulus. There are some experiences that are too traumatic for us that we go through that are buried deep inside your subconscious, because the brain will help. It is a coping mechanism. The brain helps you not to remember the pain. The brain and the ego, the way the human being is constituted, is that, this person has to protect themselves from pain, from death. So the brain will hide it deep inside your subconscious, right? And then you have your non-conscious processes, which are, things that happens within your body that you're not aware of, things, the reactions that help you to breathe, heartbeats, and all those things, you're not conscious about it. They're autonomous, and the body just responds. But what research is showing us right now is that almost like, I don't know if you guys know the iceberg model, where you have 20% of what you see is controlled by 80% of that which you do not see. So if we just suppose that to consciousness, what research shows right now is that the 80%, if not more, of what you do not see that is in your subconscious is actually ruling and rolling. It's like a program in your mind that you're not aware of. And that is what is determining your responses, your reactions, and things that you do. And because we're not fully conscious or aware, we react. And we don't know why we react. For me, for instance, when my mom is not feeling well, it's always my mom or my children, I just panic. I can't function. I totally lose it. I'm panicked. I'm full of fear. And I had to get to the point where I went deep to find out what exactly is going on here. There's a program in the background somewhere that is running that I can't explain. This irrational fear, I can't explain. And later when I was going through it, I now realized that, okay, well, my dad died in my arms almost like 30 years ago. Maybe it's the unhealed trauma and the emotions that were associated with that period that are buried, that come up and is making me react and behave. That's an extreme case, but you'll be shocked by the time you start interrogating your actions. You'll be shocked that you yourself can't explain why you do certain things that you do, and you're not even aware of it. So for the purpose of our conscious living series, I will define consciousness as the level of awareness that you have about yourself. Those are your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, yourself and the way you run, and also the level of awareness that you have about the things that are around you, your environment, and what is really, really going on in your environment. For you to understand this, and I'll just start sharing some core principles, laying the foundation that we're going to be talking about in the future series. There's some core principles and tenets that rule conscious living. How do you live consciously? How do you raise your level of awareness? And for me to describe that and explain it, I'm going to look at consciousness like a mountain, right? And a mountain has a base, a mountain has a top, right? And consciousness is your level of awareness of things around you. So you can imagine if you are at the bottom of a mountain, what you will see is very limited. What you will see, you probably see like the rock face in front of you. You probably can't see beyond, maybe 1 meter ahead of you. But if you ascend that mountain or that hill halfway, you will see a lot more. Your peripheral vision is a lot wider. And then if you get to the top of the mountain, you can see a lot better and make better decisions than those that are at the bottom of the mountain. And what we've realized is that many of us, when we say you're living consciously, what level on that mountain are you at? Are you at the base where you can only see far? And the issue is when you make decisions with very little awareness, that you're just seeing a little bit of information, you're not seeing the whole picture, you can never make the right decisions. So this series will look into what level, how well are you really seeing? How clearly are you seeing things around you in order for you to make the right decisions concerning you at every single point in time? So I'm going to park that information and I'll go into another concept that we need to understand that will help you, really get this concept of consciousness. And that is the fact that as a human being, what we see is the physical, this body that we have. But human beings, there's more to a human being than the body, your physical body, and your interaction with your world through your physical body. We have a body, yes, but we also have spirit. Our spirit is linked to our soul. Our soul is the one that really honestly does not die. Our soul is that part of us that is linked to our Creator. That is the part that, is there regardless. I know that, I think in Africa, we understand this concept. In the Western world, people just think, okay, you're here, you live, you die. But in Africa, we understand the concept that we are beyond body. We are spirit. We communicate, there's the spiritual realm that we communicate or can be communicated through as well. And then you have your soul, which, once your spirit leaves your body, it gets back to the soul and you're there. And I was actually at 2 funerals this last week. And there was something that the pastor, the preacher, the reverend in the church that I went to said, and it really struck me, and I said I was going to mention it here. There's a Yoruba adage that says, Aye loja, Orunile. And for those who don't understand Yoruba, what that essentially means is that the world is the market, is your marketplace. And heaven is home. So you can see that our forefathers, our ancestors understood that you are here on earth but for a short period of time. You are here to be in a marketplace. You are here to buy. People in the market, they're buying, they're selling. Some people are just hanging around, But you don't just go to the market if you don't have business. Well, most people don't go to the market if they don't have business. So if we mirror and parallel that to consciousness and conscious living and soul, body, spirit relation, what we're saying is that the soul comes to earth within this body to achieve for a certain purpose. There's a reason to your existence. Every single person, there is a reason to your existence. It could be to learn something, it could be to share something to the world, whatever it is, but there is a reason to your existence. And in our coach training program, the way that we always explain it is that if you look at an acorn, that acorn, before the acorn as a seed, before it was planted as a seed, has the potential and the potentiality to become a huge tree, right? But when you plant that seed, the acorn in the ground, depending on the soil, on the water, the light, all those things, the acorn will either thrive, flourish, or die. But every seed has the potential to be a huge oak. And I think every human being has the potential to achieve their purpose, their God-given destiny, if they have the right knowledge, the right information, and they're planted in the right soil, right? So your soul sends you here. For those who are Christians, I'm trying to make these conversations non-religious, but because I come from the Christian background, I will make references to biblical texts. But to be honest, the principles that I will share here, if you look at Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, there's some universal principles that govern the world. And those principles, they transcend religion. And, one of those principles is the one that I've shared, that, body, spirit, soul. You can see that every single religion, most religions will either, they have some practices that help you overcome the body, to connect to the soul, to connect your spirit to the soul, things like that. So I will make biblical text, the Bible says that before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. So there's a purpose, and I know that some people have come to me and said, I don't know my purpose, I don't know if I have a purpose, etc. But there is a purpose to everybody's existence. But this is why the Conscious Living series is to help people with the information that they need to get that access. So we've established that you have your soul, which uses the spirit through the body to interact with the world. So for your body, when you interact with the world, your physical body uses your five senses. For all of us who've done elementary, primary school, the biology that they teach it, our five senses. You interact with your world with your eyes, you see, with your nose, with your ears, taste and sense, and then some people, knowledge is a way that you interact with your world. The same way that your physical body interacts with the world through the five physical senses, that level of consciousness that is your spirit also has the inner senses. So you have your outer senses, eyes, but you also have those senses on the internal, your inner senses as well. So at the level of the spirit, you can see, right? And if you look at that mountain analogy that I gave you at the beginning, when you are at the base of that mountain, you're physical, you interact physically. It's your ego that is controlling and driving the things that you do. Your ego is just meant to protect you. So your ego is, driven by fear, by, separation. But when you ascend to a level of awareness that you're connecting more, on the middle level of the mountain, you start connecting with your clear senses. In today's parlance, they call it clear. So you have clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, so that the ones that can feel things that the physical body cannot touch. Some people smell, some people, also taste. So all those senses are also in existence in the spirit, that level. Which is why you have, and psychology is beginning to recognize that there are some principles that cannot be explained by science. And they recognize the fact that there's some people who see almost like into the future. They see what people don't see. They see, they can, in Nigeria, I'm sure, or Africans will understand this when you go to a pastor and they'll say, oh, this is what the Lord says. They are connecting to a higher realm, a higher level, using these spiritual senses. They are hearing, they are seeing. These are all methods that the soul uses to connect with you and to teach you in this journey called life. But because a lot of us are rooted at the base of the mountain, where we are run by our physical senses, we cannot make full advantage or take full advantage of our spiritual or inner senses. And remember what I said with the mountain, when you are using those, your higher senses, you can see better, you can see further. You'll be able to make better decisions at that level. So the whole essence of this series is to help us to see how we can move up the different levels so that we can have better, clearer information about the things that we do, the things that we see, and the things that are around us on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to stop here. I'm halfway through. I'm going to stop here for any reactions. Thank you for joining, everybody that has joined. We've spoken about consciousness. We've spoken about the body, spirit, soul connection, how everybody, you're not just physical. We're a body, we have a spirit, we have a soul, and, the world, every single person has it. Everybody has the ability to activate their higher, their inner or spiritual senses. Some people dream. And these are all, some people's dreams always come true. They will see everything clearly. Those are not physical senses. Those are things that cannot be proven by science, although science has begun to, through that quantum science, quantum physics, they're beginning to realize that, yes, there are some phenomena that cannot be explained away by science. So it's really, how can we interact or get higher on the mountain to the point that we're right at the top, at the soul level, and we're looking at our life at the level of how God sees us and sees our life. And I'm using God. I mean, if you are not, I think every religion really has some level of, if you Buddhists, they will say that there's a level you're transcending to. They to train their body, subject their physical body so that they can connect with the spirit. So it's really, I'm using that because that's what I know, but you can liken it to anything in your own sphere. I have a question here. How can we understand our existence so as to achieve purpose? Okay, so that's really that's why we're here. And for me to explain, understanding how, number one is, how do you achieve, what is your purpose? I said earlier on that every single human being has a purpose. There's a reason. God doesn't make, there are no accidents in the world, in the universe, in the kingdom. There is a reason why you're here. So maybe part of it is, how do you find your purpose? And remember at the beginning, I was saying to you that, I tend to follow my passions. I think part of it is for us to understand that the body is intelligent. Your body is innately intelligent. Your body will tell you, you will know, but because we are at the base of the mountain, we don't connect to the message that our body, our emotions, our spirit is telling us. So for me, number one is for that we need to, there's some disciplines with conscious living that you just have to adhere to. And honestly, these disciplines are not disciplines that are limited to, it's just, those are things you need to do. For instance, be still. When you're in the physical, distracted, phone call, you're busy working, you go, you come, you cannot be still enough to connect to where you can get the guidance from. So one of the things that I tell the people that I work with, my clients that I coach, is when they're like, oh, what do I do next? The answer lies within you. And that's another key tenet of coaching. Coaches don't tell you what to do. They believe that you have the innate intelligence to know what your soul wants for you as a human being. It doesn't necessarily mean that another person cannot have that, but I'm just saying that every single human being, the way your body is made up, is such that you have the ability to know, what your purpose is. So it's just a matter of you to be still and listen to the cues. Listen to what interests you, what your passions are. Typically, remember I said, I spoke about the seed, that everything that the seed requires to become a tree, the acorn requires to become an oak tree, is already in the seed from before it was planted. So when a child is born, all the gifts, all the talents, the characteristics that they require, the behavioral patterns and personalities that they require to be who they were sent to be, is actually already there. So again, remember I said, if you plant that seed in the soil that enables that seed to grow, to achieve its potential, it will get there, right? But so what happens with us, especially in our part of the world, when a child starts, there's some children that from the minute they're born, from the time they start interacting with others, their personality. There's some children who they are the ones who are leading their mates. From get-go, they have those instinctive leadership traits. They have instinctive curiosity. They're there touching this, touching that. But what do? In our part of the world, we, be quiet, sit down, don't do that, don't go there. So the innate skills that this human being, this seed, this potential has been planted with or has been given to achieve their purpose, we kill it, we dull it down, we quieten it to the point that that person, because they're not planted in the right soil, they don't grow to their full potential. So, my son, my first son, Moye, when he was in primary school, his teacher will always call me and say, she called me and said, Mrs. Ponle, your son talks too much, that he's always talking. And obviously I went back to my son and I said to him that, you have to learn to be quiet. Why are you always disrupting the class? Be quiet, And he said to me, talking is my talent. Talking is one of my talents, And it's, although, I wanted to hit him around and go, what do you mean talking is your talent? Listen in class, But the truth is, talking is probably one of his talents. Right now, what is he doing now? He graduated from business, but he's talking through music. He's producing sound. He's talking. He's writing music. So talking was his talent. So you can imagine if I had quietened him down, maybe he would not have been able to express himself in that way. I'm using that as an example, but I'm sure there's so many more examples of how we kill people's potentiality. And normally the things that you are innately interested in, it's not an accident. We need to listen to our body's intelligence. The body will tell you if something you're supposed to eat is good for you or is not good for you. But because we have not trained, our education system has meant, it's taught us to focus on our brain power, what we can do with our hands, to focus on the physical senses and not these higher senses. We've lost it. So part of this conscious living series is to how can we reconnect with our inner senses that will give us higher guidance, higher clarity, and help us to understand why we're doing what we're doing. Help us to connect with our emotions. Emotions, people always say that, Jibola, you get angry, and meanwhile you're talking about conscious living. Your emotions are your emotions. It was there for a reason, right? The fact that you're living consciously does not mean that you will not be triggered. All it means is that when you're triggered, you will catch yourself and find out, okay, what's really going on here? Why am I being triggered? What can I learn from this situation? And how can I switch to a higher level of emotions in order to interact with the person and also to gain clarity with making the right decisions. So, next thing I'd like to talk about, somebody just said that's the point, it's not trained. Yes, so we don't teach people how to use and to trust their inner senses, but we all have it and we all use it from time to time. In today's world, the millennials, the young ones now, they'll, like your higher sense of sensing, the sense, that touch part. Some people call it vibe. There's sometimes that you walk into a room and you're like, you just know, there's something about this person. That's not what you can feel with your physical senses. That's your intuition. They also call it intuition. That's what your higher senses is communicating with you. It's just that, as I said, we have not been trained to connect, to trust our inner senses enough to go with the flow. If your gut feeling, your intuition is never ever wrong. Never. But what happens is that we default and go back to what we know, what we've been taught is, rationalize it, go through your mind, your body, your brain. What does your brain say about this thing? So we now start mentalizing it. Your brain is not the best decision maker for you or for your life or your direction. In fact, your brain can even hinder you from going in the path of your purpose and your passion. Because it's your brain that will tell you, your brain holds all the memories, and it's your brain that will tell you that, when you tried this thing 3 or 4 years ago, this is what happened, you were burnt, this is what happened to this other person when they did this, it didn't work for this person, that means it can't work for me. So your brain will shut it down because your brain is rational, it looks at data, information, facts. But when you're connected to your higher senses, your spiritual senses, it will tell you, go this way. So I'll give you a little story. Because I had started this conscious living series a while back, I remember when I was approached to apply to CIPM, and the truth of the matter is that, I'm an accountant working in the HR field, or leading CEO of an HR professional body. It didn't make any sense. Then I had people who were, I wasn't even a member of CIPM. I had people who were members of CIPM telling me that, Jibola, don't go there. They're not part of that's not your constituents. Don't even think about it. Don't, so because I know, conscious living, I've learned to listen to advice, but I've also learned to connect to my own inner source of intelligence, my own intuition, my spirit, to my own higher guidance. So what I did, I listened to everybody. In fact, it didn't even make sense. The salary, everything did not make sense. It didn't physically, mentally, going to CIPM was not a move that made sense. But I connected within and it was like, okay, God, where are you directing me to? What is it you want me to do? When I connected and got my own sense of conviction, I made the decision to go, right? Regardless of what people said around me that it didn't make sense. If I hadn't worked in CIPM, I wouldn't have, that was what really set me up to meet the now governor. At that time, Governor Sanwo-Olu was, well, he wasn't governor, he was candidate to be Governor Sanwo-Olu, who was a CIPM member, and we went for a visit to congratulate him and to share what we're doing in CIPM in the HR field at Federal. That was the only first introduction to the governor, 15-20 minute conversation. And if that hadn't happened, I think maybe when they called, or maybe I don't know how, bottom line, I probably would not have been positioned to have been appointed as the Commissioner for Establishment Training and Pensions. If I had listened to the advice, and it was good advice, it was sound advice. What exactly do you need this for? You know, if I hadn't connected to my own inner guidance, I would not have made that decision. And that decision, I'm sure, maybe one way, if ultimately my soul's purpose was to connect and to learn that lesson, somehow, I would have probably gotten there, maybe not as direct. So I think what I'm saying here is that we need to learn to ascend higher so that we are more constantly in connection with the higher guidance, our inner spiritual senses. Now, if we go back to the baseline, bottom of the mountain, there are, the bottom of the mountain, physical, is ruled by ego, ruled by emotions, ruled by so many things that I call them anchors. They anchor you to the ground. They don't allow you to actually be in the flow of constant connection to the level where you're connected to. I'm trying not to be religious. I'm trying to be a religious, but you're connecting to your spiritual senses. You're connected to the spiritual world. And one other thing that I forgot to mention is the fact that everything you see in the physical is actually created not at the physical level, it's created at the higher level. Creativity as a concept happens at the from the level of inspiration or thought, right? So thoughts you cannot see, but thoughts are real. Words are real. And I'll get into all this in later conversations and how it's important to capture your thoughts, to manage your thoughts. There's a saying in our coaching training that says, well, it's not as coaching training, but we use it, but it's a common saying. I think it was Henry Ford that says, if you believe you can or you can't, you are right. Belief is a deeper level than thought, but it's all linked. So what are you believing? What do you believe that is in the 80% that is under your radar, that is showing up in your behavior? So those are all the things that we're going to discuss in future conversations. How can you empower yourself, change your thoughts, identify limiting thoughts, beliefs, behaviors that are not serving you, and shift them to positive thoughts in order for you to make the decisions concerning where you need to get to, whatever challenge it is that you're dealing with at any particular point in time. So what I'm just trying to say is that creation is at the higher level. It's not at the physical level. By the time the thing becomes manifest in the physical, it's already completed and done in the spirit. And for those who are Christians, they understand. That's why you pray. That's why Buddhists will come and they will meditate. That's why if you're Islam, Judaism, practically even the traditional religions, there's always something that they do that connects with a world that we cannot see. And it is in that world you cannot see that what is manifested, what you see in the physical, can be altered, can be shifted, can be planted to become your physical reality. And there's a link to emotions as well. I'm looking at the time and I see we have 10 minutes to the top of the hour. I still have a few things to share, but I think maybe this is a good place to start having the conversation. And we can take it from there. So does anybody have any questions? Do you have any thoughts to share? Any opinions about what I've shared so far? Because I really want us to get this together. I'm still on my journey. I can only share what I've learned so far, but there is still so much more to us as human beings than meets the eye and than what you're doing so far. So questions, comments or comments from anyone? As I said, I'm new to this, but I'm trying to figure out how. Okay, there are no questions yet, but does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to join the conversation? No? Okay, can you just if you're following this conversation, just type something. I need a reaction from you. Are you following? Okay, so I have a question here from Timeout Technique. It says, you talked about causing your passions. How and when do we narrow it down? Or is it chasing? Does that mean you talked about chasing your passion? Okay, I mean, I can try and guess maybe what you're trying to say in that question. How and when can you narrow it down? I think the first thing to find out is what exactly is your passion. Because a lot of us have passions that have been killed out of us by a rational mind. Some people, and I actually appreciate what's going on right now, because in our own generation, there's some people who had a passion for technical drawing art, but they didn't develop that passion or the skill or the knowledge, and it was killed out of them by their parents. So you don't even know what your passion is. So I think the first point is trying to go back to when you were, before you had kids or whatever, as your teen. Oh, sorry, as below teens, what exactly were you interested in? What was it that you were really, really focusing on doing? What was it that impassioned you, that you could do and you just love to do? You can do, when you're passionate about something, it's not work, so it's a matter of what was it that you're innately connected to doing. So once you find out what your passion is, narrowing it down, I'm not quite sure about narrowing down. It's again going back to your connection with your higher senses. Timeout Technique, I know that you're a Christian. What is your intuitive guidance? What is your spirit telling you to do? You can have 10 passions and your guidance is telling you, your intuition is saying, do A before B, before C, or do 2 at the same time before you do 3 and 4, right? So again, it goes back to connecting and being still. Be still. The answers lie within you. And that's what I'm trying to do with this Conscious Living series, to twist it and to shift it. Our education system has taught us to ask questions and get the answer. What I'm saying is that switch it. The answers lie within you. Ask yourself the questions and connect with your innate guidance. I don't want to use God's spirit, but if that is what it is for you, connect with your spirit as to what you should be doing at any particular point in time and how you can narrow it down. Coaches can help you to gain clarity, but we all have it. We all can do it. There's nobody that is special. As far as I'm concerned, even the people who are the gifted seers, we all have these gifts. We can all hear from God. We can all hear our own direction or what have you. We don't need to go to somebody to tell us. You just need to be still. Your mind has to be still. Again, I refer to my own context, which is the Bible. It says, be still and hear the voice of God. Be still. It didn't say, go and meet this person. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But a lot of us go amiss when we go running from place to place looking for guidance. Why? Switch it round. Connect with your own inner guidance and see what, and trust that's your intuition. I'm sure all of you have it. I'm sure that there are times that you wanted to, maybe you're driving somewhere and you wanted to turn left, and that thing, that intuition, that vibe, I don't know what you're going to call it, says turn right. And you turn right, and then you find out that something has happened on the left. There was a major accident on the left, you know. So what we're trying to do with the Conscious Living series is, how can you start trusting your inner senses? Your spirit talks all the time. You are the one that's not listening. We are the ones that are too busy being busy to constantly live at that level where we're in constant connection. And as I said, there's some things that anchor you down, keeps us to the level of the physical. Emotions, and as we continue the series, I will even prove it from empirical evidence and research that has been done. Emotions like anger, bitterness, resentment, all those what we call negative emotions, they actually weigh you down. They hinder your ability to develop your clairaudience and your clear senses and your clairvoyance and those inner spirit senses that everybody has connected to their spirit. They are more physical, more flesh than spirit. So what we're doing in these conversations, how can you shift that? Release all those negativity, negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative experiences that are running under programs under the surface that are actually running your life and you're not conscious of it. I think it was Carl Jung that says that it's when the unconscious become conscious that you will stop. I can't remember. I don't know if anybody can remember that saying, that things will happen to you and you call it fate. But these are things that are in your unconscious. It's not out of, it is there. It's just that you are not the light. You haven't shone the light on that part of your being, in order for you to know that that is what is running beneath the surface, that is propelling your behavior. So I have the original Mrs. Loof. Hi, Tinu. How are you? Says, not sure if this is going to be discussed in the series. Will you dig deeper into how we can tap into what our passions are and how do you nurture it? Absolutely. We're going to do that. But what we wanted to do with the first couple of conversations is to set the, just set the principles. So now you know that your body, your spirit, and your soul, you have a soul that is eternal, doesn't die, just changes from state to, your soul is there. That your soul has the full information of why you're here, your purpose, what you're doing here, full, complete, connected to God level. Your spirit is the vessel or the avenue or the platform through which you interact with the higher level space where creativity happens and where things happen that we cannot see. That's where you have more clarity than this physical body that you're in. So yes, we will delve into how you can identify what your passion is, and we'll have exercises and steps to connect you to it and how to nurture it. So, and these things are not, it's not rocket science, by the way. They're things that, natural, easy things that you can start doing to shift your behavior, your patterns, your habits to the patterns and habits that are purposed for you to have in order for you to achieve your purpose here on earth. We have spoken about everybody is here for a reason. We said Aye Loja Orunile, you're here to learn life lessons. You're here for a reason. Life is a journey, and I think it's a good place to stop, because the next conversation will be around how life is a journey and why we're here to learn certain lessons and the things that we see as bad happening to us. But honestly, when you are operating and connected to a higher level of consciousness and you start interrogating it, you will see it that there are deep lessons that we are to learn from every situation that we call bad or evil. there are lessons. There's a lesson in everything. There's something that is for our soul's growth, that's for your development as a person, as a spirit, and as a soul. And what normally happens that when we ignore those lessons will repeat themselves in different ways, different ways. You just have different names, different people, different scenarios. But if you start, looking at the patterns, experiences you have had, if you start, just be still and look at if there's some patterns that you see, you have experiences that are repeating themselves over and over and over again, there is a lesson you have not learned. So you have to, when you're living consciously, start asking yourself, what lesson have I not learned? It's not your village people that are doing you. You need to learn a lesson. And until you've learned that lesson, you will have the same things repeating itself. There's some people who go through bitter marital experiences, bitter divorces. They leave, consciously leave. Then by the time they start with another person, it's the same story, same character, same people, just a different name, a different height and body, different scenario. But you're still dealing with the same issues that you were dealing with in the first place. So when things like that happen, when you're in a state of continued maybe lack, there's a lesson. There is something you need to learn. Because, and also how you access higher guidance to get yourself out of. But there's a lesson. Life is a journey, and that's where we're going to start from next week. There's a question here. There is focus, there is stamina. Focus and stamina equates to passion. Once you notice your passion, we should reorganize to protect that passion. There is focus, there is stamina. Focus and stamina equates to passion. Possibly, I would switch it the other way around and say your passion is what elicits your focus and stamina. Because when you're innately supposed to be doing something and you're passionate about it, you can't eat, you can't sleep, it gets you going. It's like it's burning inside you. That emotion that you get when you have that passion, there's an emotion connected to passion. That emotion, as I said, that is your emotions are linked. They're the ways that your spirit interacts with your physical body. When you have an emotion, there's something your spirit is telling you, right? So when you have that passion, your spirit is saying, yeah, go ahead. That is validation for you right there. You're excited about it. And that you when you're passionate about football, you will eat, sleep, drink. You can train 24 hours and you don't feel. That's all you see. You don't feel it. You don't see it. You don't, So you're passionate. And again, as we go on with the series, we will learn about how to connect to trust, to learn to trust higher senses that will help us to see clearly or clearer. And when you have more information, you can make better decisions and you will feel better about yourself and about your life path. So I can confidently assert that your intuition is reputable. Totally agree with you. Your intuition is never wrong. Your intuition, as I said, people call it intuition, they call it vibe, some people call it the spirit talking to you. They are never wrong unless you're connected to a different spirit, because there are situations where people are connected, to spirits that are not the true spirit that is for your guidance. Until you make the unconscious, thank you. The quote that I was trying to remember is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Fantastic. So that is basically part of why we're here. How do we make the unconscious conscious so that things that are ruling us and experiences we're having in our life, we don't just say, oh, well, that's my lot in life. That is fate. That's what God has said I should come and do. There's times that, yes, it could be, but how do you differentiate between the two? How do you ensure that you're truly fully connected to higher guidance and your spiritual senses. Thank you, Coach. Looking forward to the program. Thank you. So you are also saying your passion and the knowledge you gain will add to you. You turn out as, yes, your passion and so your passion is a passion, but the knowledge you gain builds the skill, builds the muscle, right? So you have a footballer that has natural passion and talent, but they need to master it. They need the knowledge and the skill, practice to turn that into natural part of who they are. There's nobody, no star, no artist, performer that does not hone their skill, even though they're passionate about it. Some people can be passionate, but you don't develop your passion. What's the purpose of that? It's almost like when you're given a talent and you hide it under the bushel. Your talent will either be taken away from you, given to somebody else, or it will die with you. I remember there's somebody that, I think it was, there was one of these pastors, Miles Monroe, that said, where's the richest place in the world? Where is it? Some people said Saudi Arabia with the oil fields. Some people mentioned other places, but he said no. Richest place in the world is in the graveyard, because a lot of people come to this world with passion, with purpose, with ideas that can turn the world around, but they hide it under the bushel, under the table, and they die with it. Right? So this process is really how can you, is taking you through those conversations. How can you hone in on your innate gifts, innate talents, innate passions? And because, as I said at the beginning, your innate skills, personality characteristic, that is what God has given to you to achieve all that you require to achieve here on earth. So you need to hone it, regardless of what society and tradition is telling you. When they say women, women are supposed to be demure. If God did not want you to speak, He would not have given you that personality to be an orator or to speak. So what are you doing with your talent? Are you growing it? Are you building it? Are you building on it? Again, biblical. You all know the story of the talent. What are you doing? What are you doing with it? Because a skill, a talent unused, it becomes a waste. No use, no good. I look forward to the program. Thank you, Babatunde Shosaya. The session is truly enlightening. Thank you, Coach JP. Thank you. We should not allow distractions to shift our focus. Absolutely. Allow the villagers breathe. I totally agree. Leave your villagers. They're doing their own thing. Allow them breathe. We all have the power. So the other thing I wanted to say with the villagers and all that, the village people, the truth is, consciousness also teaches you that, and we'll talk about it later. When you're at the base level, when you're there at the base level, your village people can get you. When you're at the level of being where they can connect with you, that's when they can get you. If you are higher, there's no way. I believe it. I know it. I've gone through situations where I know that there are people who probably psychic attack, spiritual attack. It can't get to you when you're not at their level. If you're at the top of the mountain and there are laws that control this world. Gravity. When you put an arrow, if you shoot it up, when somebody is up, it will come down before it gets to you. So your village people can only get to you when you believe that what they're doing can get to you. But if you believe that a curse costless cannot stand, if you believe it, the problem is that a lot of us know it, but we don't believe it. We don't know it to hear. We have the head knowledge, but we don't truly, fully believe it, because our belief is saying to us that, this thing happened to that person, that thing happened. So, you don't truly, fully believe it. That's the truth. If you fully believe that village people cannot get you, they can't get you. That's the truth. And if you're not operating at the level, if you're both in the valley together, yes, you guys have a shooting spree. You'll be attacking each other, fine. But if you're at the top of the mountain, and when you're at the top of the mountain, you know you're at the top of the mountain, let them continue. They can't really get you. I keep telling my kids whenever they are scolded for any wrongdoings, if they're defensive and not accept that they're wrong, they would do the same thing again and again and get punished. Okay. So I think what I was trying to say when I was talking about children is also, the message also is to parents, to let parents also know that there's some behaviors that we say is wrong, but those behaviors is just part of a child exploring their world and trying to exhibit their innate gifts, right? As I mentioned, the one that, a child is touching this, some children can take something and break it apart because they're trying to see how it works, what's in it. As a parent, we'll beat them now. In Nigeria, we beat them that you don't know this thing is expensive, don't you know? But by the time you beat a child like that over and over again, that innate sense of curiosity dies because they will attach their curiosity to pain and punishment. So we need to, as parents, balance punishment and killing your children's innate gifts, characteristics, personalities that they were meant to use in order for them to survive in their world. Yeah? Yeah. Regards to your son and my former student at BIS. Oh, Mr. Babs, that you? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The knowledge you gain builds your muscles. I like that, JP. Thank you. The role of knowledge can never be overstated. Absolutely. We must build every passion. Try. There's never any... Build this until the passion fizzles. There's a lesson in that. That knowledge will be used somewhere else. So I always tell people to follow their passion. I have a burden for multi-talented people. Yes, the Nest Crush. I know that you're also another one of those multi-talented people. Leonardo da Vinci they call them polymaths. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being multi-talented. Leonardo da Vinci was a master of art, master of science, master of geology, invented this, invented that. He used left brain, right brain perfectly. So there's actually nothing wrong with being multi-talented. What you need to do, the challenge with multi-talented people is focus. What to focus on at which point in time and what to continue. Because when you have so many interests and passions, it might stop you from growing deep. You just do small, across instead of going deep. So yeah, we're in the same boat. But hopefully, as we have these conversations, please send in things that you'd like us to talk about. I said it's a co-creation. Things that are of interest to you, let me know, and we will talk about it and have that conversation in subsequent broadcasts. We should build our talent, yes. When you are truly talented at a lot of things, coach, how do you manage it? Okay, so the Nest Crush. I think I've answered this question with, just connecting to see what do you do first. Focus. What do you focus on and how long do you need to take it before you move to the next thing? Which ones can you do two at the same time? So again, those are things that you can do by connection and, guidance. Thank you. Yep. Thank you so much. So I think we are now naturally at the end. Speaking about knowledge, what happens when a child tells you, I am dropping... Oh my gosh. Nest Crush said, speaking about knowledge, what happens when a child tells you, I am dropping out of school to follow my passion? You beat that thought out of them. I was just joking. What happens? Number one, how old is your child? Would be the first question. If your child is your child, I think psychology would tell you that a child's executive function doesn't fully form to maturity until a child is like 23 or 25 or something like that. So at that point where their executive function, which is the part of their brain that helps them to make decisions, clarity, organize, when it is not fully developed, as a parent, part of your role as a parent is to guide and to help them make sense of the world. Okay, if you're dropping out of school, how are you going to make a living? How much money are you? Help them to see the reality, and then you can sow seeds of where you feel that they should be going. I had a challenge with this when my son, I'm not sure if maybe he's even watching, because I'm using him as examples in this thing a lot. Even if he's not here online, I'm sure he'll probably join somewhere along the line and watch it. When he decided to, he has a major in music and psychology. So I said music, in business and psychology from NYU, right? And he said he wants to start doing music, and I'm like, music, after all the investments in your education from primary, secondary to, you want to start doing music, how is that gonna help you at this particular point in time, give you security and what have you? But he was so passionate, and if I look at even many years before now, when he was in primary school, from primary school, he was in talent competitions. When he was in secondary school, he was inventing things to do everything. Every birthday, his music, his equipment, his microphone, his whatever. And he's also quite aware. He's very highly conscious as a child. And I had to succumb to that. Okay, you know what? Teacher, teach yourself. This is the area of this boy's passion. He's gone to school. He's got his business degree. How can you help him to make sense of it? But because he was still gung-ho, I'm like, okay, I'll give you space. I'll give you space. I'll support you. I'll pray for you, and I'll allow you to do your thing. And praise God, he's got a music contract recently signed, and he's doing well now. But as a parent, that fear, you also need to question yourself as well. Somebody said that I'm going to make a living. He says, ask Davido's mom. Exactly, So when you look at things like that, you now realize that, if a child has the talent, is growing, and he was building himself, growing himself, knowledge, getting skills, going to courses, all to develop this audio production thing. I had to hands off, and even doff my hat to him, because it was like, look, I don't even need any support from you. This is what I want to do. I will survive. I'll make it work. And this is 2 years down the line. He's doing his thing, and he's enjoying what he's doing. He is enjoying what he's doing, and he's beginning to make money from it. So why are so many HR firms, another one, doing the exact opposite of what they claim to stand for? HR firms having toxicity in their workplace. How can this be tackled, especially for low-level staff? Okay, toxicity is a symptom of you working in an environment that is at the bottom of the pyramid, it's at the bottom level of consciousness. You find out when you have a leader and an organization that is more aware, and their state of being and consciousness is higher. You find out that the work environment is a lot more enjoyable. There are more positive emotions that are felt, unlike those ones that are toxic. So I would say that maybe it's an awareness, it's a knowledge issue. Why are they doing exactly the opposite? Maybe they're not aware. Maybe they're unconscious. A lot of us are living unconscious lives, where life is living us, we're not living consciously. So maybe they're just caught at the bottom of that pyramid. All right. So yes, we've done more than 1 hour. I'd like to thank you all for your connection. Thank you all for the conversation, for the questions, and thank you for joining. I really do believe that those who are part of this community are meant to be there. If it resonates with you, if it doesn't resonate with you, but I'm doing this, and I would like you to please join my journey. As I'm learning, as I'm sharing with you, I'm also learning. And we hope that we will get to the point where we have sustained higher level, higher consciousness state of being, and we are more joyful, more loving, more passionate, as you would find at the top of the mountain. The top of the mountain is pure love. God is love. Anything else, you're not at the top of that mountain. Unconditional. So I hope you'll join me on this journey as we get to the point where we are operating at the level where positive emotions, love, joy, peace, money, 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 passion. Money will technically, money will follow when you're in line with your purpose or your passion. If you're not making money from your living, check what's going on. There might be something rolling. We said things under the surface that are ruling that you're not aware of. Shine a light to what's really going on, and we can help you with that. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining, and see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.